Welcome to 10 Talks, real conversations for champions with champions, where a champion life is a 10 life. Thank you for joining our team today. I'm Carlette Patterson, your head sports life coach at the Life Training Academy, and it's our desired outcome to share our passion for sports life coaching by training you to live a 10 life. You and your life matter. Let's get coached. Hi team, welcome to 10 Talks. It's another 10 day for us to be able to share the power of champion change. And we have one of our coaches, Joi Williams, who is our guest today, really sharing her heart and stepping into what is champion change, how do we do champion change. We know in all that's happening today, from our heavy heart perspective to just the power of how can we be an agent of change? How can we do something that actually contributes in a positive way? And so, Joi, thank you for coming on and just sharing your story today and your journey. And we're going to anchor in starting with the power of your story and you being a champion yourself for change and through change. So tell us about your story about change.
Well, thanks for Carlette, first of all, for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. And just to tell you a little bit about me, I am born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida. So I'm a native Floridian. I went to school throughout in Florida and then quickly developed a love for the game of basketball. I started playing in the 5th grade and then all through high school. Was blessed to have an opportunity to play in college on an athletic scholarship. So that was great. And then I loved it and wanted to remain in contact with basketball and be a part of the game. And so I started coaching. I started my coaching career at the University of Florida as an assistant, spent 12 years there, great years, a part of building that program, and then one other year as an assistant at Clemson. And then I had a chance to be a head coach at the Division I level at Murray State University and also at the University of Central Florida in Orlando. And then after that, I also had an opportunity to be an assistant coach at the professional level in the WNBA with the San Antonio Stars, who are now the Las Vegas Aces. So 27 years of coaching and great years, love the relationships that I built and love that. And, unfortunately, my last head coaching stop, I was let go. And that's part of our profession, so, but the thing about that is that, I lost my father soon after, which was a turning point in a way for me because I got a chance to come home and reconnect with my mom and be here with her, help her through some tough times. And then I kind of thought to myself, like, what do I want to do? Do I want to go back into coaching? I know I want to stay involved in sport and be a part of, helping young people, interacting with young people, being able to impact them. So, I thought a lot about it. I actually had a life coach myself that someone introduced to me and really liked that. And she was one of the people that said, you might be good at this. It might be something that fits you, because that's really, in essence, what a coach does a lot of times is that we coach athletes not only on the court and on the fields in their sport, but also how to handle things and navigate things outside of sport and out in the real world. So, and that was one of the big joys that I experienced as a coach, was not only winning championships, I was fortunate to do that, but also helping young women when they came in to go from coming in as girls and leaving as women. So I really enjoyed watching that change happen and being a part of that. So fast forward, I met someone who was, knew you and knew about sports life coaching and got a chance to get involved in that realm and just loved it. I love the tools that we have to be able to help people with change and how to make change in their life. So was able to do that, and then had an opportunity to go to Clemson, where I am now at Clemson University, working with the women's program in a role called Director of Quality Control, where I'm really serving and supporting the coaches first and foremost, and also the athletes. And so it's been great. Just finished my first year and looking forward to another great year with that program and helping those young women to navigate change in their lives, especially in the times that we're in right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And Joi, you've just, you are the example of champion change. I love the combination of following your passion, being a basketball player, knowing that you love the sport and you love the passion, and being able to really do that transition from actually athlete to coach and loving it. We certainly know that part of change is loss as well, and really understanding that there's grief that comes with loss, even if it's losing a career or getting fired from a career or whatever it shows up as. And then you stepped into losing your dad as well. So part of your change as you were growing was about just getting better and better and kind of having the courage to go for what you wanted, and then to be somewhat at the top of your game and to experience a loss that, I know in the losses I've had, I didn't see them coming. So it's not as if that change shows up in this, nice little purple box with a bow on it. To me, all the changes kind of just, totally hit me over the head and been like, wow, here you go. Now welcome to change. So that's what I've experienced in my life. That feels like a lot about what, you've experienced. And that's what I want to talk about today is kind of that surprise change that happens. And how can we be prepared when change does show up in our life? How can we be a champion, not only to represent ourselves and our values and what we stand for, to be able to communicate it in a way that people understand our hearts and understand our intention, as well as stepping out and living something different to produce a different result. So today I've anchored in 3 of our MeQ skills. Part of our coaching that we're so passionate about is MeQ, really training a person to be intelligent about themselves. And to me, change, that is such a huge thing. I've got to know me. I've got to know what's important to me. And I want to connect to my world and my community and share me. So as a MeQ conversation today for Champion Change, we're going to anchor in 3 skills: listening, learning, and loving. So as you watch your film, which is a term that we use so much in sport, which means you go out, you play life, you play a game of sport, and you come back and you sit with your coach and you watch your film so that you can learn from it. When you watch your film in life and you start to think about your champion change, how did listening come in? What are some winning strategies for listening? Coach us up on how we can be better today.
Well, with listening, one thing that I've always really, as a coach, as a sport coach, listening is something that was huge in recruiting. So I really learned that and got a chance to really listen to people's stories, not listening in terms of thinking about exactly what I'm going to say next or how to respond, but really listening deeply, just tuning out all distractions and really hearing what they have to say, whether I disagree with what they say, whether I can relate, but just really getting a chance to know where they're coming from. So I think listening on that level is really important. And, I think one thing that's been a winning strategy is for me is just to really prepare myself like I'm here for whatever they have to say. I really want to know what's going on with them, what I might hear, not forming an opinion before they say anything. I think that's always a winning strategy. So just really being present is a winning strategy with me in terms of being a good listener and receiving what people have to say.
So team, for you, as Joy and I coach you up in terms of being a great listener or a champion listener, there's 3 levels of listening. The first level of listening is me listening, trying to figure out kind of what my comeback's going to be, and me starting to listen to insert myself. So it's really all about me. I'm not necessarily listening and engaged in the person to hear their story. I'm listening so that I can kind of get my story in there. So that's level 1. Level 2 means I'm coming from a place of curiosity. So I'm listening and I'm curious, but I'm still ready to put myself in there. So I'm not a pure vessel. I'm not listening purely just to hear, to listen, to understand. I've got me kind of front and center. Versus a level 3 means I've removed me. I'm out of the way. I'm showing up with this open heart, open mind, open spirit, kind of open self to receive and to listen at a really deep level. So huge MeQ skill. Let's really practice. I want to challenge all of us to be level 3 listeners and to get ourselves, our beliefs, just our vision of what's right out of the way so that we can learn something new. And with that learning, it gives us the ability to step into change and see like, okay, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to feel really different because this isn't what I do. So what are some winning strategies for really learning how to be different, Joy?
I think some winning strategies for learning how to be different are just being open to other possibilities. I think when we think about some of our routines and how we've always done things, we think of there's a certain uncomfortable feeling if we are not used to doing things a certain way. Right. So I think with learning comes a lot of just being willing to try new things, and, understand that it might not be the correct thing. Sometimes there might be mistakes, or it might not feel right, but just really being able to learn from taking some of those chances, and learning and acquiring those new skills, and, new possibilities that could come with what you learn.
So, Joy, I want to talk about failure, because something that happens when we do something new is all of us like to kind of be a master at what we do. We want the confidence. We love to show up really being our best self. And when we introduce change from my own life, I know when I've gone through change, I've been really nervous about, am I going to be good enough at this? Am I going to lose really what I've gained in life? There's fear. There's just a lot that's packed inside the concept of change, because I am going for something different. So tell us about, in your life, a time when you went through change and, you failed, which happens to all of us. And what did you learn from the experience?
I think, when one big thing, I mean, I got fired from my job, and that's always a thing where you think about it, you see it happen, you empathize with people, but until it really happens, you have that feeling like, I'm a complete failure. That is probably the first thing that came up for me, is that, wow, I failed. And then I really didn't think about all the great things that we had done in that program, the great things I had done throughout my career, and the successes that I had. I just think about that one thing. And I think that's, whether it's losing a game sometimes in sport, whether it's losing a job, or, mistakes that we made with anything. I think that the thing that I quickly was able to see is that, yes, I failed in that instance. There were some things that might not have gone right, whether it was in my control or not. But what can I learn from the situation? If I have the opportunity, or when I'm able to be back around a team, or be in an environment, when I get my next job, what are some things that I've learned from my failure that I was able to bring to the next spot? And one of my failures, quite frankly, and being transparent, is that with some of my relationships, I probably took them for granted in terms of staying connected, whether it was athletes or colleagues or whatever it is, and to maintain and keep building relationships. And so one thing that I took with me is that, hey, I don't want to ever take certain relationships for granted. I want to continue to be strong in that area, and to really build relationships, and give hope to people at all times. So I think, there's a lot that I've learned. If I was still in that same job, I might still be taking those things for granted. So it's a blessing that you don't like it when it happens, to failure, but to come out of it and be on the other side of it now, there's a lot of blessings and a lot of lessons that I learned from that.
And Joy, what I hear as I just, step into the power of your story is somewhat of the awakening that happens when we're shaken by the change that shows up. I know, as good as ritual and routine is for a winning strategy, we can always, as you say, start to take things for granted. And I love being awakened. I love really being challenged to be a better version of myself every single day with whatever challenge is coming up. So let's just unpack that learning component, because we as a world right now are in this transformational time of learning. And I love anchoring in relationships, because that's where my heart is that we want to, really love each other, learn from each other, listen to each other. And let's just wrap all of this conversation for champion change in relationships. So tell me about some winning strategies that as a relationship component that can help all of us as listeners really be better at loving and learning from people.
I think one winning strategy is really just to embrace the differences in people, and, just being able to let people know, I see you for who you are, not pretending that. And even if they're different from me, and we have a completely different background or upbringing or set of beliefs or political party or whatever that is, that, I see you and I want to know you more. I want to get to know you. I want to get to know what you like, what you don't like, how you want me to communicate with you. I think those things are super important in terms of building those relationships, and then getting to a place where you really love that person. I think that's where love comes in, is that you want to show them that, hey, I'm here and I see you and I support you. I think acknowledging people is something that, in our everyday busy lives, we just get so busy and we just pass right by and, might say hello, might not even look a person in the eye. But I think I think that's the starting point for that love and relationship building, is just to sit down and look at somebody eye to eye and let them know, I want to know you. I want to know more about you.
So we're talking about love now. That was, as we set up this champion change conversation, we talked about listening, learning as we're listening, and now going into that love as we think about relationships. And let's talk about performance barriers. That's another one of our MECU skills. And that is any barrier that gets in the way of me not being able to be the person that I want to be. And as fabulous as this conversation sounds, and I know you and I have a great love for each other, and we've been in relationship together in terms of being able to go through the coaching experience, and we've gotten to experience the power of love and how that really can be transformational. But there's performance barriers because you and I are different, and we're coming into different systems and different ways of living and different parts of the country. So as you watch your film and you think about the change that you've experienced in your life, what have been some performance barriers that have gotten in the way of you being able to really receive love, be love in those relationships?
I think, as I think about it and watch my film, probably just being hurt and not being open. Maybe, if something was hurtful or there was a relationship where something was said, it's almost like I might have closed my mind to whatever else was going to be said after that. So not really listening at a level 3 and hearing that other person. And also just really sometimes, honestly, having a prejudgment in my mind might have been a performance barrier to really get into deeper relationship with someone. So I think those two things are just, assuming, which would be the same thing as just kind of thinking, I know what they're going to say. I know what they're going to be about. I know because of certain circumstances, or this is what they're going to say, and not giving them the opportunity for me to hear them or to listen at a level 3.
So team, as we take you through our MECU skill of performance barrier, you're hearing Joi identify the performance barrier, which is step 1. And that's really being hurt. I mean, that happens to all of us, especially the more vulnerable we are, or even the more important something to us is. That's where the hurt can be deeper and more powerful. So Joi, when you've been hurt as a performance barrier, what's been your action to change?
Big action to change is just to first admit it to myself. This is why I can't move the needle, in this relationship. This is why I feel the way I do. And really just to then, the next action to change would be to really have a conversation with that person, is what I did. And that was a great winning strategy, because I was able to just explain why I was angry or upset and why we haven't been able to grow our relationship, and just really discuss it and talk about it. Here's how I feel. I'd love to know how you feel. And then, kind of come to a point where we're on the same page and able to move forward.
Or if you're not on the same page, at least you can still move forward with a more understanding way, because sometimes we don't get to that neutral place. Right. It's just part of being human. And yeah, so the third part of this tool team, in terms of my action to change from a MECU perspective, is I'm going to identify my performance barrier. I'm going to come up with my action to change, and then I'm going to test it against my definition of success in my professional life, my definition of significance in my personal life, and my definition of service in my philanthropic life. So Joi, in this instance, as you're watching your film Talking Relationships, it could apply both personally and professionally, because we've talked about, getting fired from a job, that can be professional. And then we're talking about personal relationships. We can have a hurt in that as well. So when you watch your film and you identify that I'm hurt, your action to change is to admit it to yourself and then to have a conversation. Does that align with your definition of success and significance?
Yes, it absolutely does align with my definition, because professionally, for success, I want to build and maintain strong relationships within my profession, outside my profession, just the people I come in contact with, and really stay in contact with those young people as much as possible. Just be someone that they can call, 5 years down the road and remember some of the things that they might have learned from me and me from them. Just have a conversation. So stay connected. And those things with relationship are definitely right in line with what my definition of success is for my professional life, and also success for significance for my personal life.
Yeah. So team, that's where you're getting to see from a coaching perspective. That's our MeQ skill. That's us coaching you for any performance barrier that shows up, you not being able to be the person that you want to be. So we identify the performance barrier. We claim an action to change. What am I willing to do to have that change happen? And then I test it. Is it for success, significance, or service? So Joi, one winning strategy that I heard you bring up inside that action to change component was conversations.
Yes.
And let's talk about how to have conversations that really, as you say, move the needle inside change. We are in a moment in time where there's nothing I would want more than us to be able to learn from each other, listen to each other, love each other, and have some conversations to have that be an action to change. How do we do that?
Well, I think that, again, listening is super important, just coming from a place of wanting to know more and wanting to learn, first admitting to yourself that you don't know with some topics. I have a lot of friends now, especially during the time that we're in, that have reached out to me, contacted me, like, what can I do to help things to, help the Black community, or to help people that might feel injustice like we're having right now? What can I do to learn? And my thing is just learn more, read more. And it's beautiful that they come, and that's the first step, I think, is opening up and saying, I don't know, I just see what I see on TV, but I want to learn more. What resources can I go to? And I think those are great steps. And the same for me with areas that, I might not know a lot about, just to really take the time and not just watch it and listen, but to spend my precious, time to really dive deeper and to learn things about other people and what they might go through, and how I can be more supportive in those areas.
And that's back to relationships, right? I mean, that's really what life comes down to, is connecting with anybody that's in our world that we can say, hey, teach me, tell me something, let me know the power of your story, explain something to me from that perspective. So I want to talk about fear. I want you to watch your film in your life and think about a time when you've had fear show up. And what kind of conversation do you wish you could have had, or we can have, as fear is one of the performance barriers that we're all wrestling with right now?
Well, I think that, I think fear sometimes in having tough conversations, for me personally, if I watch my film, there's been several things, but I'll say one thing. When I became a head coach, especially, I can remember one thing that I never really wanted to do or liked doing was just, public speaking in front of, say, a really big crowd. So that was a fearful time, just something physically that, for me and it was something that I knew I had to do for my job, but really was a performance barrier in me growing. And so I just had to confront it and face it and do it, prepare. So what I did was just, winning strategy was just really making sure that I was prepared about whatever I was going to speak about. And it was fine, at the end of it. But I think that's the biggest thing, is mentally we have blocks sometimes about what is this going to be like. We have a conversation with our team on a tough topic. And I can remember, as a head coach in sports, having some tough conversations with our team, whatever that was, if it was, certain topics that were just hard for people to really discuss. But I felt like that was my duty as their leader, and to really overcome that and just put it out there that this is going to be a tough conversation, not anything that we might particularly enjoy, but that helped me to get past that and to really open up and let them know that it was, it's hard for me too. And let's just share in this moment. So I think that those are things that really, just letting people know up front, this is hard for me. It's just like the speech, I'm a little bit nervous.
Yeah.
When I had that first one, like, I just let them know, like, this is new, this is something. So I think just being honest and letting people know kind of helps you to overcome some of that fear.
I love that winning strategy. I mean, I wish all of us could just be us, right? Like, be ourselves. Hopefully we're getting better day in and day out, and just speaking our truth. That takes us to another one of our MeQ skills, which is anchoring in truth. being able to acknowledge at this moment in time, this is who I am, this is how I'm feeling, these are the things that are mattering to me, this is what's important. So, Joi, as you think about your truth and the life that you've lived and the beautiful opportunities that you've been blessed with to give hope to people, what has been a truth that really surprised you and that you can give hope to all of us listening, that it would be something new that we could learn, something that we can listen to you about, and that we can really anchor in from a love perspective?
So I think for me, a big truth, especially in the time that we're in right now, is that, even after Black people, especially going through what we've been going through for hundreds of years, you think about our ancestors and you think about some of the racial injustices and inequalities, a truth that is still happening, that's very real, and that it's not really getting a whole lot better. So I think that's one truth, that you want to think that things are getting a little better, because I think every day in our personal relationships, the people that, especially me, that I work with, that I see every day, there's this cocoon, and there's love all around. I work with a really great group of student athletes and group of coworkers, but I think when the truth is that when you look outside of that it's not happening. So I think one of my truths is for me is really trying to figure out, like, I got to think about how I can, as one person, try to help, try to be a light and give hope to my student athletes. So I think the truth for me is that I really need to spend time. I have been trying to spend time in thinking about how can I do that with them? What can I teach them, or what can I, through my life experience, that can help them navigate through some of this and understand better and learn better. So that's really a truth, that I don't just take that for granted, and I really spend time, conscious time daily, thinking about how am I going to do that.
So if each one of us want to be different and we want to be a champion for the change that we believe in, we are going to listen to each other with an open heart, open mind, open everything, so that we can actually hear our stories. So Joi, as we really think about how can we be champions in this time, and champions for our own self, and champions for what we believe, as well as for champions for our world and the people, our community, what is something that you've learned in your life from a truth perspective that you can teach us, that we can learn from your life and be able to leave today from this conversation and go out and do something different to get a different result?
What helps me is that, I've heard all my life, like a lot of people, and especially, friends and colleagues that are not Black, say, I really don't see color. I really don't see the differences. And so that's almost sometimes offensive. And I think that the truth for me is that I want you to see me. I want you to see my color. I want you to honor my color, that I am different.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important. I think sometimes people, when they do that, they think they're telling me, like, I'm not a racist, I don't see your color. But technically, everybody sees it, so I want you to really just learn more about me. I want you to take the time, people to take the time to learn what they don't know, because I know there's a lot of people that don't really understand, and a lot of my friends that aren't Black, my white friends, or friends from, that are foreign or whatever else, might say, Joi, what can we do? And I think the truth is that you can just take time to learn more, to stand up when you hear something that's not right. If you're in a crowd of people, and you might be around people that are, all one race, no Black people around, and sometimes people feel more comfortable. I think that's a time really when you can take a stand. Nobody might see it. You're going to know it.
Yeah.
So I think those are things that I think are the truth, is that we all hear those comments. That's a truth for me. You hear it, but what do you do in those instances? And I think, I always say that, and we hear people say silence is acceptance. Silence equals acceptance. And so when you have an opportunity to say that's wrong, I don't want to be a part of that conversation, I don't want to hear that, I think there's a time that will help people to really be truthful and honor themselves and feel good about that when they walk away, whether it's in a crowd of people or whether it's just you and one other individual. You have an opportunity to honor yourself and really what you believe in, if you truly believe that.
So Joi, thank you for that gift. Thank you for the gift of letting me listen to you and learn from you. And so what I heard from that is that it's not about saying I don't see color, because color is a truth, and to really acknowledge you for who you are, which is a huge winning strategy. And just, thank you for that truth. And thank you for blessing us in this conversation to be able to learn what is the right thing to say, what does work, what doesn't work. That's part of winning strategies, is what doesn't work. So I see you for who you are. I see color. Tell me more about color. Tell me more about you and your life and what matters to you. So give us some interesting new things to learn about. What is it living your life?
Sometimes people try to use different slang terms or, you know, a different dialect when they talk, if they're talking to a group of friends that are Black or whatever else. They might change their inflection, their tone. And there's really no need for that. You know, I think sometimes that makes them feel like they're a part of the crowd, or that's cool. And that's pretty offensive a lot of times. So I think just be who you are, you know, no matter what that is. So I think those are something that you don't feel like if we're in the car that you have to turn the radio station to a rap station or R&B station. You know, I like all genres of music, which I'm sure a lot of people do too. But I think those are just certain, you know, and they're not anything that anybody's doing to offend you. They don't want to offend you. I think those are things that people think, okay, I want to make them feel comfortable. Right. You know, for me personally, I was always, like on my basketball team in high school, I was the only Black student athlete, except for my senior year, we had one other person. And so I think it's always interesting because when I'm around, and I went to private school. So I was pretty much, I'm already in the minority, but always throughout school, there were not very many Black students. And so I would always, you know, be that person that, oh, you know, I have these Black friends, or I have, you know, certain, and that kind of makes you, it's not meant to make you feel bad, but it does make you reflect on that. And so I think just, again, being who you are, just acknowledging, hey, we're different. I want to know more about you. I want to know where you're from. Because I think it's uncomfortable sometimes in my experience. It's nothing for us sometimes as Blacks to be the only Black. Right. But I think sometimes when you put whites in that situation, and I've done it with my white friend, whether I had gone to a place that was primarily Black or, you know, going out socially, how the awkwardness, and they could feel that, and I could see it. And I think in that instance, they learn pretty quickly, like, wow, this is something that I deal with 24/7, or that a lot of Black people deal with all the time. And it's almost second nature to us. Like we're used to not being very many of us there. So just understanding, you know, how would I feel? You know, I think one big thing that helps is for you to try to put yourself in that situation if it was reversed. Yeah. So I think those are things that just help. But I mean, just really be genuine. Yeah. That's the biggest thing. Don't try to feel like you need to be somebody else for us.
So Joi, in terms of interesting conversations, you know, thank you for the joy of just being able to understand you, to listen to you, to learn. And, you know, I love you and adore you, and just, you know, love the opportunity that we get to really learn from each other and share our winning strategies. And my favorite part of this whole conversation is just that, and what I would hope, you know, going forward, is that we can be us, and that we can really stand for what we believe in. We can do it through listening, learning, and loving, and really be able to bring some hope to our world, be able to wrap that hope in love. I know that you know, these are very hard times from that perspective. And part of our 10 Talks, our mission is real conversations with champions for champions. And this is a real conversation. This is real what's happening. It's tough out there. I want to just be able to step back in time. We started with the power of your story and you sharing the champion change that you've gone through. You have an amazing story about your grandfather that we're starting to be able to learn from his story and see how we can step into today and be different. Share his story with us.
Well, my grandfather, his name was Isaiah Nixon, and he was shot. He was living in Austin, Georgia, Montgomery County in Georgia, and he was a part of helping to take Black voters to the polls during the first Democratic primary in the state of Georgia. It was back in September of 1948. Okay. He had taken some Black voters to the polls, and prior to that, he was warned, he and a lot of the other Black citizens, that if they did go vote, that there would be repercussions, and that if they were to help people go vote, even though they said you're allowed to do it, it was opened up to Blacks. The underlying message was that don't do it. And so a lot of Blacks back in that time were scared to vote, even though they knew they could. They were afraid that if we go vote, that bad things would happen. My grandmother urged him, begged him, not to do it, to be careful. But he felt like it was, what he was called to do. He wanted to help people do it. So he and two other men took voters to the polls that day. Later that evening, the two brothers, two white men, came to their home in Georgia. And as my mother was sitting outside, they asked them to go outside and get my dad, my grandfather. My grandfather was out in the field, in the cotton field working, and he came to the front. They asked him to take a ride with them, and that they wanted to talk to him to go take a ride, and he refused. So he just stood his ground. They asked him one more time if he would please just go with them. They wanted to have a discussion. He didn't go. And they shot him down in broad daylight, 3 gunshots. So he fell to the ground. My mother was a witness to it. And the 2 men ended up being charged, but they were let go. So they said it was self-defense and were able to get off from that. So really, his story is amazing. A podcast has been done called Buried Truths. The Emory University man by the name of Hank Klibanoff has a Georgia cold cases project, and my grandfather was the subject of the first season, the first person they studied. And so they were able to go to Georgia, find his gravesite. My mom knew where he was buried, didn't know exactly where the grave was, because at that time, they didn't have headstones and that kind of thing. So he was, they found it. The class actually found it. The Wall Street Journal did a huge story about it. They came and did a photo shoot, and the first time that my mom actually got a chance to go witness her father's grave for the first time. So it was great for me because they brought her in to speak to the class, and I accompanied her. And it was just amazing to watch her, because I had heard this story as a young girl. My brother and I, my family's always talked about the importance of voting. And I really finally understood why that was so important to my family. Even my grandmother now, who's still living at age 96, is adamant about voting and making sure we exercise that right. So just a huge blessing for me to learn, and also a blessing to watch my mom transform the anger she had as a 6-year-old watching her father get murdered to now his story being told, his legacy being kept alive. They've also done a curriculum in the state of Georgia for middle school and high school that would be centered around Isaiah Nixon. So just a lot of positives that came from that tragic incident. So it was great to watch her, because she feels in her heart, she feels good about it. She's at peace with that, with the work that they've done. And so it's just a great thing. And I think one of the things that I feel like I'm charged to do in all of the things that we're going through is really to help our team to understand that they have that right, that it is a privilege to be able to vote, not just as Blacks, but as women, to be able to do that. So I think that, I've told the ones that aren't registered to vote, we're getting to work right now to help them figure out what they need to do in their state. So that's something personally that I know that's just a little piece of what I can do to help, to maybe help them see that they can make a change. Because I think so many of the young people feel hopeless, and people in general feel hopeless. But I think that does give hope. When we see the outcome of a couple of recent elections where no one would have ever thought there would be change, there was change because people exercised their right. So that was a lot of hope that, was given to people through that, just exercising your right. So I'm excited about the opportunity to do that. Just very proud of, my grandfather's story, and the fact that, people are recognizing who Isaiah Nixon was, and the good work that he did. So the podcast is Buried Truths, and it's season 1. If anybody wants to listen to it, but it's a great story, and is a testament to how he lived his life.
Wow, Joi, that is love on every level. I mean, that's a beautiful summary of every bit of the words that we have spoken today. And, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for letting us know your grandfather's story, and just the amount of champion change that you represent yourself, you just stepping into it, We want to give hope to every person listening that they too can be a champion for change. They can learn from your story. They can listen to every person that they have the opportunity to bump into or to have a conversation with. We want you to have courage to have those tough conversations. And if somebody says something that hurts you, please call a timeout and be like, ouch, that hurt. That's an awareness, because we're going to be rookies at this stuff. A lot of us haven't done a lot of change in our life. We've maybe hung out with the people we feel the most comfortable with, or, change is not something that's easy. So we have this opportunity, this moment in time, to go for something so much bigger than ourselves, to go for champion change, and to really step into these champion conversations and say, I want to be part of a really positive movement, and I want that to be anchored in hope and love and learn and listening. So Joi, thank you. We are on your support team. Thank you for being on our support team. And team, we're going to challenge you. We're passing the ball to you. It's up to you for you to go out and think about the change that you want to be a champion for. Think about your life, champion your life first, you and what matters to you. Have those tough conversations, connect with people, love them, listen to them, learn from them, and let's hope that you have a great 10-week. Know that we are here from a coaching perspective. If you'd like to learn some more of our tools and get coached from a MECU perspective, you can go to lifetrainingacademy.com. And Joi is one of our coaches, so you can get coached up in a way that really gives you the opportunity to learn how to develop that me intelligence, that MECU. So thank you, Joi. Thanks for your words of wisdom, your love. To be continued. We're all stepping out into that champion change. Thank you for listening. We'd like to get you coached up, so head over to iTunes and Spotify and hit subscribe. And remember, a champion life is a 10 life. You and your life matter. Create a life that you love, give hope to others, and be and choose nothing but 10s. Be you. The world needs you. Go to lifetrainingacademy.com to start your training and get coached.